Hello, I'm Jimmy Hassan, and you are watching Community Voices at your TV Kojiko. On August 15, 2021, the federal government decided to call an early election. On September 20th, millions of Canadians will be voting for who will be their next member of parliament. All 5 candidates for Kingston and the island have begun their campaign, and regardless of how soon the election will be here, they have each put their platform in motion to earn your support. Of course, this election is going to be like no other with the pandemic raging on. Communicating with the voter will be a challenge, as reducing the spread of COVID-19 is the top priority in every campaign plan. Today, I have all 5 candidates with me to introduce themselves and share with you their background, achievements, and aspirations. I hope to encourage you all to do your own research and inspire you to take part in your civic duties, to safely cast a vote in this election, as we need your voice to be heard now more than ever. Joining me now, Dr. Waji Khan, another new face in Kingston politics and candidate for the Green Party of Canada. Dr. Waji Khan, thank you very much for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
My first question to you, a lot of people know you in Kingston as a dentist, but we want to know more about you, your family. Can you share your personal profile with us?
Thank you, Jimmy. So first of all, my parents were both immigrants moving to Canada from Pakistan in the 1960s. And I was born and raised in North York, Ontario. I grew up in Scarborough, Ontario. Like many Canadians, grew up playing hockey and working at McDonald's. Soon after high school, I attended the University of Toronto for undergrad, and then I went to the University of Toronto Dental School. Somewhere in dental school, the Canadian Forces came knocking and basically said, we will help pay for some of your schooling if you come and work for us. And having gone through high school and had a tremendous appreciation for the efforts of the Canadian soldiers in Canada in the World War I, World War II, and in the peacekeeping missions after, it was something I was interested in, being a young feller. And my parents were supportive. And so in 1998, I enrolled in the Canadian Forces, and upon graduation from dental school, was required to work for 3 years, and I was having so much fun. I stayed for 6 years in the regular forces, but then the wedding bells rang, and my wife wasn't too keen on a service life, and God bless the people that do work in the military for a prolonged period of time. It's really a lot of family sacrifice and commitment, but it was just not a sacrifice she was willing to make. So I had to, as we say in the Army, listen to the domestic niner and take my release from the Canadian Forces in 2007, and here I am in Kingston, Ontario.
Well, wonderful. I know that you are very busy at your work, very famous dentist in Kingston. What makes you think that you want to be a politician and running as a member of the parliament for Kingston and the island?
Thank you for the question once again, Jimmy. So, I mean, if you ask anybody that knew me growing up, I don't think anybody would really say that I was a person who would be jumping into politics, despite the fact that I actually have held offices. I was the president of my student council in high school and the president of the Dental Student Society at the University of Toronto Dental School. But in terms of actually being politically involved, I've been involved in politics on and off over the years, initially for many, many years with the Liberal Party. My parents were both Liberals, and the Liberal Party was seen as the party that really brought a lot of immigrants to Canada, and so we were encouraged to basically show some loyalty to the party that sort of helped bring us here. As I grew a little bit older, some of the ideas that the Liberal Party had, I guess I could call myself more of a right-wing Liberal or a small C conservative, as they say. I was kind of not really liking the direction that the Liberal Party was going in, especially with some of the broken promises, particularly electoral reform, which would have led to a lot more participation of parties like the Green Party, the NDP, and other voices, marginalized voices in Parliament. I kind of grew estranged from their ideas. I took a look at a few other parties. However, there were just some ideas or concepts that just didn't, sit well with me. What I found nice with the Green Party was, if you look at the last federal budget or federal campaign in 2019, the Green Party was the only party that actually came out with a fully costed platform, as per Kevin Page, the parliamentary budget officer. We would have had a fully costed platform for this election had we actually known an election was coming. But a lot of people are sadly mistaken into thinking that the Green Party is like a one-trick pony or a one-issue party, and the environment is the only thing. If you actually take a look at the party in detail, you'll find that the Green Party is the only party which is fiscally conservative and also socially progressive upon many issues, things like abortion and LGBT rights and stuff like that. So I found kind of a home with the Green Party. As you know, we've known each other over the years. You know, I have the liking for the green color as well. So it was kind of like a perfect home for me. So what motivated me to run was I was just looking at government and things that were taking place and decisions that were being made from a healthcare and an economic perspective. As you know, I'm a dental surgeon in Kingston, Ontario, and also a small business owner like yourself. I also have a Master's of Business Administration degree from Dalhousie University. And I just became a bit weary of the decisions that the government was making. Comments like, you know, budgets balance themselves, and the fact that our country had basically gone from, you know, all year upon year upon year of proper fiscal management through ministers of finance like Paul Martin to getting the deficit to a reasonable amount, to basically like we almost like doubled or tripled the deficit in 1 year without any sort of performance guarantees that were given to the people. So in terms of what issues so that's what motivated me to run. But in terms of issues that I think are important for Kingston and the Islands, I think it's very important to look at affordable housing and address the cost of living issue, right? I think it's very important to look at the environmental crisis. And when I say crisis, I mean the world is literally on fire. A lot of the other parties basically take their platform and paint it green and try to present it as an environmental action plan. I mean, the government kept trying to basically train people into thinking that carbon pricing, or really it's a tax, right? Finally, they admit it's a tax, right? Taxing people is not going to basically save the environment. And really what it comes down to is that money that you're going to be garnering, what are you going to be doing with it, right? How is that actually going to help the environment? So the environment is the issue number 2. And issue number 3 are things like making sure that healthcare and our economy from this COVID-19 pandemic work, you know, on the up and up. And you have to remember also that economy and health go hand in hand. So these are just 3 areas in which I think that we could do things differently, we could do things better as a Green Party.
For the Kingston and the Islands? For
Kingston and the Islands.
The way the pandemic has been handled by the current government, and you mentioned also the deficit, what is the Green Party's platform to handle better than the Liberals or any other government if they become, or they have the opportunity to form a government to recover the losses from the pandemic or the economic recovery to move forward?
So moving forward, thank you for that question. Moving forward, I'll just use, for example, the plan for affordable housing. Affordable housing is something, and the cost of living is something which is affecting a lot of Kingstonians. A lot of these people are already living paycheck to paycheck, and the government just announced $13 million commitment to development of affordable housing. What the Green Party would do differently, and this is what the government is doing, they're just throwing money at issues and problems without any performance guarantee whatsoever. As a business owner, I'm a business owner as well, we have outcome variables by which we use a yardstick to measure our efforts, and we're held accountable. So in terms of the government's efforts, like we had the $1 billion going towards the We charity last year. What was the performance measure, a performance guarantee that was going to be given? What was that money going to be doing for the people? So you look at a monument like the wartime construction projects that were built in Kingston during the war. They're just by the Heights area here in Kingston, and they're a monument to what good government policy can achieve. So a Green Party would basically go into the economy, try to stimulate things, create green jobs. There's all types of made in Canada projects that we can entertain. You always have to sit there and ask the question, why is lumber being shipped across the border to New York State and being shipped back to us to purchase? Why can we not, why can we not process it here? The pandemic really highlighted the fact that we have become so self-reliant upon other countries that we cannot, have our own supply or manufacture of things like toilet paper, things like personal protective equipment, things like vaccines. There was a guy named Frederick Banting. Many people may recognize the name Banting and Best, who invented insulin in the 1930s in Toronto, based out of Connaught Laboratories. Well, Connaught eventually sold off to Sanofi Aventis, and this laboratory is very capable of producing vaccines here in Canada. If you were to ask any business, would they outsource they're key success factors to some other company? And the answer is absolutely not, right? So why are we basically outsourcing our national defense or our ability to sustain ourselves to foreign nations? Why can we not make vaccines right here in Canada? We have the brains, we have the infrastructure, we have the capability. We are at war right now with a virus. It's not an enemy, it's a silent enemy. But if we were at war right now with a foreign nation, we would be building planes, trains, beams, bombs, and bullets. So we are at war with a virus. Why was not one of the first things we were doing is producing vaccines in our own country for Canadians to use? So these are questions that we ask, and these are things that the Green Party would definitely address and be putting money out there in programs with appropriate performance guarantees.
So you mentioned in your comments that the Green Party is a progressive like NDP and is a conservative values, has like a conservative value. If one of those parties is able to form a government, just in case, and is that Green Party going to join them?
So the Green Party has always been about working with other parliamentarians for the benefit of Canadians. Despite party lines, we are all on the same team, which is to put forward the best thing for all Canadians. Even in the coalition government we have right now, it's a minority government. Had Mr. Trudeau gone through with his promise for electoral reform in 2015, and we had proportional representation based off the actual vote counts, you would have seen a series of coalition governments or minority governments. This current government, the Prime Minister single-handedly took this opportunity and called an election. It wasn't Parliament, it wasn't elected officials, it wasn't losing a confidence motion in the House. It was the Prime Minister going out and expressing a viewpoint that Parliament had become toxic. And all of the parties basically said, what are you talking about? And then he basically came out with another message where he said that he needed to go to the people for a mandate. Mandate on what? You have the parliamentarians there. If he had so much concern that there should be some sort of democratic process here, not single-handedly going to the Governor General and asking for a writ of election to be called. If he truly believed in democracy, he would have recalled the House, he would have put a motion of confidence on the table and asked for the coalition to defeat him and then go to the people and ask for an election. Why are we spending $500 million on an election? People just are trying to enjoy their summers, enjoy their families, grandparents who haven't seen their kids in a long time, like my parents who haven't seen my kids in a long time, kids who haven't been to school, finally out doing activities and stuff. And literally, like I believe it was July 30th, you could go to the Sky Dome and watch a baseball game. After 2 weeks of people finally getting back to some level of normalcy, the Prime Minister called an election which no one really wanted.
What is your stance or your party's platform handling from here and onward the losses of economic losses in the pandemic? We have been so-called international relationship crisis, whether it's United States or China, now is Afghanistan, and so on and on. How the Green Party will do different to rebuild international relationship with the other countries and have a plan for economic recovery, and will do different to handle the pandemic from here and on?
So in terms of, so you asked me many questions there. I'll try to answer them. In terms of economic recovery, I mean, ultimately what we need to get people back to work, right? We need to get people back to work. There's people out there, anyone who works in the hotel, hospitality, tourism, travel industry, those industries have just been devastated. As a clinician talking to patients, many of these people are coming in and they're telling me their stories of how through some government assistance and dipping into their own personal savings, they've basically had to, keep things going. But we don't need more lockdowns, right? What we need is a government that's going to have an actual plan. The government says to us that this entire pandemic was novel and these are unprecedented times. This isn't unprecedented times, Jimmy. We had SARS. This is SARS-CoV-2. This is not the unprecedented times. This is Act 2, Scene 1, okay? This is what we're looking at here. We had the Dr. David Naylor, who was the president of the University of Toronto, the Dean of Faculty of Medicine, report from SARS. We had the Dr. David Walker report from here in Kingston, who was the Dean of Queen's University. We had Dr. Richard Shabas, who was the Ontario Chief Public Health Officer at the time. We had lessons that could be learned, but the government chose to ignore them and allowed the enemy through the gate, which is what's causing a lot of this economic problems that we have. So first and foremost, we would want to be more preventive and more proactive in terms of making sure that these sorts of things don't happen again. In terms of the environment, an environmental crisis, the world is on fire here, right? If I was to ask you, Jimmy, how many of these cigarettes here do you have to smoke to cause cancer? And the answer is many, right? Similarly, we have to ask ourselves, how many environmental crises have we had in this country since the 1970s? And once again, the answer is many. And if you were to take a look at it, when I was a child, you go outside in the sun, and then all of a sudden after sometime in the late 80s, you went out in the sun and it felt like it was burning your skin because we had a hole in the ozone layer. And what did the government do? We banned CFCs in aerosols so that problems wouldn't occur. When you're treating cancer, you have to make difficult decisions. And that means treating cancer, it's either surgery, chemotherapy, and that sort of stuff, right? And so we need to make some difficult decisions here in Canada about how we're going to address the environmental crisis. Because if the environment continues to go downhill, guess what, Jimmy? Our economy goes downhill as well. The issue we have right now is we are more focused on the privatization of things like water as opposed to the prioritization of making access to safe, drinkable, natural water to the people. And that is the true crisis in our country.
Thank you very much. 30-second, how you urge the Kingstonian to support you?
How do I urge the Kingstonians to support me? Well, we need to send a message to traditional politicians, and by this I mean the traditional parties, that this election was unwanted and that this sort of behavior is not going to be tolerated. Send a Green MP from Kingston and the Islands to Ottawa. I can assure you that I will stand for you. I will assure you that I will speak for the people, and I will assure you that I will not keep silent on things that are problematic and going to be causing an issue for our country, and that we will have growth and prosperity moving forward.
Dr. Waji, thank you for being my guest and sharing your platform and your thoughts with our viewers. I really wish you all the best, and thank you. Thank you very much for watching Community Voices. I urge you all, please take part in this election and make sure that your voice is heard. Do every vote count. Thank you very much.